Morning English 101. I'm going to give you an overview of the lesson plan. And like I did yesterday, I'm going to try and include the notes from the third part of March Book 3. I'm inside. I'm just having the worst time trying to upload stuff from my phone to the internet, to YouTube. So I'm going to do this one on my desktop computer and see if that works a little bit better. This is a great little video clip of John Lewis dancing to Happy. So if you want to start your weekend off right, there's a good one right there. Remember, there's a bonus point available if you want to watch this documentary about James Baldwin, who we saw writing in his letter to his nephew. And then the 3 assignments to take notes, including the one that's a little bit maybe more intense, the PowerPoint, Google Slides, or Prezi on the last third, I guess, or last 100 pages of March Book 3. And then the Thursday assignment, can you pass these voting tests? Oop, I don't have it on here. I need to add in here the voting rights timeline, which is the one I'd like you to do for today. I've included in this today's a little callback to yesterday's assignment, yesterday's lesson plans. Some more information about Malcolm X and his death and some famous quotes from his, so you can take a look at those. Our pages today, where we picked up yesterday, left off yesterday. I'll get there. Where we left off yesterday was John Lewis kind of having an argument with SNCC and deciding that he was going to go out and participate in the march, even though they were not in favor of it. So there he is on his way. Here's some actual photographs. That's John Lewis, of course, right there in that famous overcoat, and Hosea Williams facing off against the Alabama State Troopers. And as you remember, of course, the result was that he had a skull fracture. Hit twice, once knocked him to the ground, and once when he was trying to get back up off the ground. And so here's an actual picture of him being beaten by the police with their clubs. Here's some raw footage of it. So if you're interested in it, you can see kind of what it looked like when people on that day. This is C.T. Vivian, I think. And then there's the start of the protest. And then the advancing state troopers, horses, tear gas, batons, chaos. So there's some of the actual raw footage from that event. And here's John Lewis recalling that day. And when ABC and NBC carried this event live, or in showed like 15 minutes of it, I think ABC did, it shocked the nation, much the same way that George Floyd's death shocked the country earlier this year. You can see this is support for Black Lives Matter movement. Here's the Charlottesville rally that we've talked about, where the woman was killed by the car, and kind of the strength of the Black Lives movement was born there, I guess, but also highly unpopular. Its popularity, or its acceptance, support, I guess I say, has been growing. This is Ahmaud Arbery's killing. He was shot while jogging through a neighborhood. This is Breonna Taylor's killing. She was shot after a no-knock entry into her house and some confusion by the police. This is the coronavirus rates according to race, which has affected African Americans to a large extent. And you can see just this massive spike in in support for Black Lives Matter when George Floyd was killed. By the way, that has started to come back down. I think because of the riots and some of the, maybe the what some might see as the excess of the movement following George Floyd's killing, you'll see some support starting to come ebb for that and come back down. Not to where it's down here again, but it's not at this peak anymore. There's additional conflict within the movement, a huge conflict about the Turnaround Tuesday, where Martin Luther King had made arrangements with the police and with the state to not cross the bridge, and they made him look bad for it, and everyone questioned him, including Jim Foreman, who was very irate. This is 60 seconds. It's worth checking out. SNCC and John Lewis are arguing about whether they should march and continue on. John Lewis siding with Martin Luther King, and SNCC saying we're going to go just straight drive to Montgomery and start protesting there. Then another shocking moment in the Selma protests was when the Reverend James Reeb was beaten to death by white supremacists, I think Klans members, in Selma, Alabama. One of the most famous moments in the 60s civil rights movement is Lyndon Johnson's It's an American Problem, where he says at the end of it, "We shall overcome." Here's a short, I think it's 5 minutes. There's a 5-minute clip of it. If you wanted to, I think the whole thing is quite a bit longer than that. This would be a good topic to use for a rhetorical analysis essay. I'll show you another one in a minute. On page 222, we get the idea that the courts are going to let the march go ahead. And there's continued conflict within the movement, this time again from SNCC's James Foreman, or Jim Foreman, who said, we're going to take them out at the knees if they don't let us march. And that turned off a lot of people and caused John Lewis to feel like he was not a nonviolent person anymore, and furthered the split between John Lewis and the movement. Here's some pictures of Amelia Boynton, who really is an American hero, as I'll point out in just a minute. This is her on Bloody Sunday. Both of these images are. She was beaten as she crossed the bridge as well. This is her on the 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. Let me see if I can zoom in on that for you. So this is John Lewis. Obviously, that's Michelle and Barack Obama. This is Amelia Boynton right here, crossing the bridge on the 50th anniversary with the first African-American president and the man who was at the head of the line back in 1965, right? Yeah. Here is a video of Amelia Boynton remembering and being remembered for her part in Bloody Sunday and the Selma movement. I don't know if you remember her from a couple of days ago, but she was also involved in earlier part of the protest. And then here is her speech on "Get Off of My Shoulders." She says, people say, we're standing on your shoulders. And she says, get off of my shoulders and go do something. This would be another great example of a speech that you could examine the rhetoric of. This is one of my favorite moments, the climactic moment in the movie Selma, where I think it's called, anyway, it kind of uses the Battle Hymn of the Republic as a framing device. And he says, how long, not long, because no lie can live forever. What an amazing thing to say right there. Here is a partial video of that speech.
I know you're asking today, how long will it take? Somebody's asking, how long will prejudice blind the visions of men? I come to say to you this afternoon, however difficult the moment, however frustrating the hour, it will not be long, because truth crushed earth will rise again.
Man, that's great. Anyway, here's a transcript of the whole speech. If you want to do an analysis of the rhetoric that he uses in it, the logic, the emotion, the credibility that he builds in it, that would be a good one to do. In a kind of an ominous, the more I think about what happened after the speech with Viola Liuzzo, the more I think this is a kind of an ominous warning to what came after Selma and the Voting Rights Act being passed. She was shot and killed while she was transporting people back and forth between Montgomery and Selma by Klansmen. And I don't know if we felt like this moment here was going to be the moment when we came together and healed. This was a good example of how we still had and still have a long way to go. Speaking of progress, however, maybe this is a good sign of progress. I've been pointing these out as we go throughout the books that we've been reading. There are memorials being put up, different than Confederate memorials, which are controversial for obvious reasons, and maybe inappropriate for obvious reasons. There are memorials being put up to remember the civil rights leaders. This is one of them here, a memorial to Viola in, I think, her hometown of Detroit. Lyndon Johnson was maybe the most crass president in terms of his vulgar language of any president that we've ever had. There's an argument to be made for others, but Lyndon Johnson certainly could swear and be gross with the best of them. The Voting Rights Act, here's a short video that includes President Obama discussing the Voting Rights Act on the 50th anniversary of the March in Selma. And here's a quote from Lyndon Johnson at the signing of the Voting Rights Act. And at the very end of the book, John Lewis calls in a kind of a somber moment after the inauguration of Barack Obama to remember with Ted Kennedy the price paid for Barack Obama's presidency, which included the death of John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy in 1968, and of course Martin Luther King in 1968. Here is a kind of a cool graphic that I found just this morning. Let me see. Whoa. Let me get rid of myself here, of the march from Selma to Montgomery and the kind of the waypoints along the way. Not all of these obviously happened at these locations, but this kind of gives you a map, and then here's another map. So they started here and they ended here. By the way, there's a memorial for another memorial, a different one, for Viola Liuzzo. I think I'm saying her name right, midway through where she was shot. Okay, I think that's it. Let me see if I'm still recording. Yep, I'm just done right now. So that's the lesson plan for today. I hope you have a nice weekend. I'll post the Friday work right underneath here, and you can finish that up today. Great job this week. I see a lot of people getting their stuff in early, so keep up the good work.